Welcome friends for the seventh lecture of Sensor and Network. So this is unit 2 of Internet of Things, that is ELL 405. So I will recap what we have learned in last lecture. We started with null instrument. So null instrument, then second is depletion type of instrument, how we can do a calibration of the instrument and how we can do calibration of sensors and all. Then we have learned about linear differential uh, like sensors, that is potentiometers. So there are different types of potentiometer, that is carbon composition, hybrid, plastic case and all. So we have learned about that thing in the last lecture. um, Also we have learned about some set of standards and regulatories, those who made these particular standards. So this we have uh, completed in the last lecture, that what are the different standards available for different manufacturing industries and all. So like we have IEEE standard, ANSI standard, then EC, that is commercial, CE standard. So these standards we have learned, and those we have covered in the last lecture. So now in this lecture we proceed with the same chapter, that is sensor and network. So we continue with the sensors again. Okay, so I will start with the session. Okay, we'll start with the session. So in the last lecture, we have seen potentiometer type of a displacement sensor. So how we are going to use that potentiometer type depletion sensor. So these are the techniques of using the pot. So there are many techniques I have elaborated in this particular diagram. So for the displacement measurement, we are going to use simple potentiometer. And here it is first type, that is belt and pulley method. So in this belt and pulley method, the potentiometer is attached here, okay, and we have a pulley and a belt. So here it is a pulley available, and we have a belt over it, okay. So whenever this rotates, and we need to measure a displacement. Suppose whenever this rotates, this changes. This also rotates this particular potentiometer as well, and because of that, so we can measure the displacement. So it is again for a short span of displacement, like belt and pulley method. Okay, so this way you can use potentiometers, that is belt and pulley method. Second is rack and pinion method. So rack and pinion method, in that there is one rack available with gear threads. So with this is having a gear threads on it. So this gear threads, and on the top we have a gear, and with the shaft the potentiometer is attached. Okay, the pot is attached, and due to this, whenever this rotates, whenever the displacements happens, then that potentiometer also changes its resistance. So like this way we can measure again the displacement using a rack and pinion. Third is a lead screw method. In this lead screw type of method, the potentiometer is fixed in this, okay, potentiometer is fixed in this particular box, and there is a screw available, that is a lead screw type of screw available, and we can have the threads are available on the screw, and the screw is moving forward and backward. So depending on that, the resistance get changed with the lead screw, and then we are going to measure this as well. Okay, so we can have a lead screw type of method. So in this we can have lead and a screw is threaded. So when once the screw is rotated, it will rotate the displacement as well. It will get a displacement as well. So second is cable drum. So drum is attached with a cable. So this is a cable, and here it is having a drum, and this drum is fixed with the pot. So whenever the cable takes displacement, the drum rotates, and due to the drum, the potentiometer rotates, and we are going to measure again the displacement using a cable drum method. Next is cams. So cam is again one of the technology used, and in this we have a camshaft, and a potentiometer is here. So whenever it rotates the displacement. It rotates this potentiometer as well. So depending on that, it gets the displacement. Again, bevel gears. So in this case, bevel gears, we have triangular gear arrangement. So one of the gear is attached with the potentiometer in the bevel gears. So this, suppose this gear is attached with the potentiometer, then whenever this rotates, at that time this also rotates. So you will get displacement to be measured with the potentiometer as well. So there is another way known as a bevel gears. Next is spur gears. So in this we have two gear wheels, and two gear wheels. One of the gear wheel is attached with the potentiometer pot, and this whenever this rotates, and you will get the rotation, and that is measured and that is mentioned with the this gear level. Hello. Hello. So these are the techniques used in the displacement measurement using the pot. So I will repeat the techniques again. We have belt and pulley, rack and pinion technique, we have lead screw technique, then we have cable drum, then cams is there, then we have bevel left gears, and we have spur gears. So these are the 7 different techniques we are going to use for displacement measurement using a pot. Okay. So this is about displacement measurement using a pot. So we have already learned about different types of pots used. There are different manufacturing techniques of pots as well. Okay, next we'll move forward for another displacement measurement technique. The second way, so this pot is a registered displacement technique. Second is a inductive displacement technique. So as electronics is concerned, so R, L and C are very important components. So first we have seen about R, that is resistive type of displacement sensors, and now we are going to move towards inductive displacement sensors. So for the inductive displacement sensors, the electromagnetic flux plays very important role. So what do you mean by electromagnetic flux? So inductive displacement sensors are widely used in the industry in many diverse applications. So there are many applications for this inductive displacement sensors. They are robust and compact. So these are robust and compact, and are less affected by the environmental factors. Okay, example, humidity and dust. So this is the major advantage, that the inductive sensors are less affected to the humidity and dust. That's why they are more rapidly used in the industry. Okay, in comparison with the capacitive or resistive type of sensors. And the accuracy of inductive displacement sensor is good in case of the resistive as well as the capacitive sensors. So these are more popular in the industry. So we'll see different types of inductive displacement sensors. So before going for the types of inductive displacement sensors, we will see first a basic principle of inductive sensors. So how the inductive sensors is to be. So it is having magnetic circuit consists of a core. So it is having a core and made up of ferromagnetic material. So this ferromagnetic material is very important, and it is having a core with a coil, and the coil is available with n number of turns wound on it. So we have here a ferromagnetic material. So this diagram shows you this thing. So we have a coil rotates on this. Okay, so this is a coil. So current is flowing from this way towards this particular coil, and then it is coming out. So, and this material is a ferromagnetic material. The coil acts as a source of magnetomotive force, that is MMF. So this coil acts as a magnetomotive force, that is MMF, and which drives the flux phi through the magnetic circuit. So it produces the flux phi to the magnetic circuit. If one assumes that the air gap is 0, so this air gap, so this gives you air gap from with respect to flux and the core. So this is a air gap. Whenever this air gap is 0, the equation for the magnetic circuit can be expressed as MMF, that is magnetomotive force, is equals to flux into reluctance. So reluctance R will get, okay, from here phi into R. So that R is depends on A, that is number of turns of the coil. Okay, so this is the equation for flux. So we'll get a flux based on MMF, that is magnetomotive force, and with respect to reluctance as well. Okay, so this is basic principle of inductive sensor. Here we'll see first type of inductive sensors as single coil linear variable reluctance sensor. So in this we have a single coil and it is a linear sensor. Typically a single coil variable reluctance displacement sensor consists of 3 elements. So it's having 3 elements. So which are those? A ferromagnetic core. Their core for each and every inductive sensor, the ferromagnetic core is a important component in the shape of semicircular ring. So here it is, this semicircular ring is a ferromagnetic core. So this is a ferromagnetic core, a variable air gap. So this is air gap D available. So on the both side here it is a D variable air gap and a ferromagnetic plate. So the plate is available here. Okay, so plate is available, ferromagnetic again, plate is available, and the coil is wounded on the circular ferromagnetic material. So this is a coil rotates on this particular permanent. Okay, so we have a central flux. The air gap is represented by D, and the permeability mu A, and mu C is the permeability. So the radius of the ferromagnetic circular ring is R. Okay, and the center radius is capital R. Okay, so this type of arrangement is known as an single coil linear variable reluctance sensor. Okay, so this is a single coil linear variable reluctance sensor. Okay, all right, so we'll move forward. So second type is linear variable differential transformer, LVDT. So linear variable differential transformer is more rapidly used sensor for displacement measurement or distance measurement. So here linear variable differential transformer, LVDT, is a passive inductive transducer finding many applications. Okay, so there are many applications for LVDTs. It consists of single primary winding. So it's having a single primary winding positioned with two identical secondary windings. So there are two secondary windings and one single primary winding wound on the tubular ferromagnetic former. So there is a tubular ferromagnetic former. On that, single coil is wounded. Okay, the primary winding is energized with a high frequency. That frequency is up to 50 to 20 kilohertz AC voltage. So for the primary coil, we are going to give AC voltage with a frequency of minimum frequency is 50 hertz and maximum frequency is of 20 kilohertz. So and primary winding is we need to apply a AC source for this primary winding. Then two secondary windings are made identical. So there are two secondary windings and those are made identical. So both windings are same size and same number of turns, having equal number of turns and equal number of size with similar geometry. They are connected in series opposition so that the induced output oppose each other. So they are connected in series opposition. So they are connected in opposite direction so that those nullify the effect of induced EMF. So it opposes each other. So we'll see the diagram of LVDT, how the LVDT looks like. As it is explained that, so there is a single primary coil. So here it is a single primary coil available, and there are two identical secondary coils. So this is coil 1 and coil 2. So these are the two secondary coils. So on this side there is one secondary coil, on another side there is another secondary coil. The insulating foam is available on the top. So this side is all about insulating foam. So this like this, and this side is also insulating foam. On the bottom hand side also, on the bottom hand side also, we have here same primary coil, one primary coil and two secondary coils, and the cross section is this one, and we have here core. So this ferromagnetic core is placed in this. So whenever this rotates, so whenever this shaft is rotates, so this is motion, and whenever the shaft rotates, so this changes the induced EMF in the coil 1 and coil 2, because both the coils are in same number of turns, so both produce the same voltage at the instance whenever there is no motion or no displacement. But whenever this shaft rotates, so this is a shaft, yes. Okay, whenever this shaft rotates, this produces some induced EMF in either coil 1 or coil 2, and there is a difference between these two, and that difference is calibrated in terms of a distance. So this is the way we can use linear variable differential transformer. Okay, so this is again one of the sensor which operates on this particular thing. Hello, बोला की बोला वॉटर ड्रॉप आहेत, मार्कर्स, 2 मार्कर्स सेट करा, त्यानंतर बरोबर, आणि त्यानंतर कटर घ्या, कटर सीझर घ्या, आणि सीझर नंतर so this is about LVDT we have learned. So we'll move forward now. Second type of inductive differential transformer is a rotary variable differential transformer. So in this case, rotary variable differential transformer, highlighter, okay. the primary winding is wound on the center leg of E core. So there is a E core available, and on that E core the center wound is rotary primary winding is wound, and the secondary windings are wound on the outer legs. So there are outer legs available. So on that the secondary winding is wound. So I'll show you the diagram. So here it is one primary E core. So this is actually front section. So we have E core. On the primary side one coil is wounded. On the secondary side the two coils are wounded. So E core is available. Okay. The armature is rotated by an external applied force. So there is one armature available, and that armature is rotated by external applied force about a pivot point above the center leg of the core. When the armature is displaced from the reference or a balanced position, the reluctance of the magnetic circuit through one secondary coil decreases. So again the same way. So we have two secondary coils. So one of the secondary coil get deflected, and there I have some change in the reluctance or magnetic force or EMF induced EMF, and due to that we are going to measure that particular thing. Simultaneously increasing the reluctance through the other coil, the induced EMFs in the secondary windings, which are equal to the reference position of the armature, are now different in magnitude and the phase as the result of applied displacement. So these things are going to change though. So two secondary windings are there. So when we rotate the center leg of the E core, that is primary winding, then the induced EMF will change, and due to that induced EMF, so we will measure the displacement. So like this we have the diagram of rotary variable differential transformer. So we have here two cores. So there are secondary core 1 and secondary core 2, and there is a primary core. So this is E core, E section, and we have here a primary core. The coil is rotated or coil is wound on this. So we have here a armature, and this armature rotates. Whenever this armature rotates, so this is a top side view, and this is a top view actually. So we have here primary coil. So this is P, and this is secondary coils. So this is S1 and this is S2. Okay. So whenever this is a top side view. So whenever this rotates, so this induced flux will change. So suppose this rotates on this side, so flux on this particular coil will get. So this are output E0 or voltage, or you will get it here. Flux is you will measure, EMF you will measure. So because of that we will get induced EMF change, and we are going to measure that. So this is about rotary variable differential transformer. Okay, so this is again an inductive type of a transformer, or this is again an inductive type of a transducer available. Okay, so this is about rotary variable differential transformer. All right, so we'll move forward now. Next type. So we have seen a resistive type of displacement transducers. We have seen inductive type of displacement transducer. The third way is a capacitive displacement transducers. So based on the capacitance principle, we are going to measure the distances using capacitive displacement transducer. Here the capacitive sensors are extensively used for industrial and scientific applications. They are based on changes in capacitance in response to the physical variations. So this sensor find many diverse applications, from humidity sensor or a moisture sensor. We have like humidity or moisture measurement sensors. So those are again capacitive based sensors, and the principle they are going to use as a displacement sensors only. Okay. For example, the capacitive microphones are based on the variations of spacing between the plates in the response to acoustic pressure, thus turning audio signals to the variation in the capacitance. So like we have a microphone. So what is there inside the microphone? There is a capacitance principle they are going to use in the microphone. Due to the voice or due to the voice pressure put on that particular plates of microphone, it rotates and the yoke is rotated. So there is a signal arrangement, or there is a structure arrangement such a way that the yoke rotates, and because of the yoke rotation, it changes the capacitance between the two plates, and the two plates variation capacitance will change, and due to this variation of in the capacitance, we'll get some audio signal will be converted into electrical signal. Again, the microphone is one of the example of capacitive displacement sensor. So we'll see in detail how the sensor looks like, and what is there in the capacitive displacement sensor. Okay. So here it is a capacitive displacement sensor. So the basic sensing element of a typical displacement sensor consists of two simple electrodes with a capacitance C. So there are two simple electrodes available, and those electrodes are displaced with some air gap or some different material, and there is the simple electrodes and with the capacitance of C. So the capacitance is a function of distance d centimeter between the electrodes of a structure and the surface area A. So we have a distance d, and the surface area is denoted by A in a centimeter square of electrodes, and the permittivity of free space epsilon is equals to 8.85 into 10 raised to minus 12 F m minus 1 for the air. Okay, so it is a permittivity of free space of the dielectric between the electrodes. So we'll get the capacitance is a function of distance, the area of the plate, and the epsilon, that is permittivity. Okay, so the capacitance will be will get from this particular three is related on these three particular parameters. One is a distance, second is area, and third is a permittivity. Okay, so we'll see the capacitance equation. Variable distance displacement capacitor. So we'll have first type of a displacement capacitor. Capacitance type of displacement sensor is a variable distance displacement sensor. A capacitor displacement sensor made of from two flat coplanar plates with a variable distance x apart. So we have two plates. One plate is here and another plate is here. So this are separated with the distance of x. So here it is a x distance. It is separation distance. And this plate is a moving plate. So top plate is a moving plate and bottom plate is a fixed plate, and both the plates are having the area of A. Okay, both the plates are having the area of A. Then the capacitance will get with the equation C of x is equals to epsilon A by x, that is equals to epsilon r into epsilon naught A by x. So where epsilon is the dielectric constant of permittivity or a permittivity, epsilon r is the relative dielectric constant in a air or a vacuum, that is equals to 1. Okay, epsilon naught is permittivity dielectric constant of a vacuum, that is 8.854188 into 10 raised to minus 12. Then x is the distance between of the plates in mm. Okay, and the A is the area of effective area in a meter square. Okay, so this is the equation. By this equation we are going to measure the capacitance, and this capacitance is related, or we can relate this particular capacitance with the distance, and we are going to measure the displacement. Okay, so this is the way we are going to measure the distance using the capacitive type of displacement sensors. Okay, all right, so we'll move forward. The variable area displacement sensor, again alternatively the displacements may be sensed by varying the surface area of the electrode of the flat plate. So like there are two figures. So again this is a fixed plate. Here it is a fixed plate of a length L, and there is a distance d is separated distance between these two plates, and the x is the distance. So on this side if the plate moves, on this side if the plate moves. So here it is the x is distance, here is a delta A is the distance. So area is A minus delta A. Okay, so here it is moving plate and the dielectric constant is epsilon for this. So as I have explained, this is fixed plate and this is movable plate. So we'll get C is equals to epsilon r into epsilon naught A minus W of x into T. W is the width and W of x is the reduction in the area due to the movement of the plate. So we'll find out the reduction in the area of the movement of the plate, and then we are going to calculate the actual displacement of the sensor, or like we are going to measure the distance. So this is the way we are going to measure the distance. Okay, all right, so this is about capacitive displacement sensor. So next type of a displacement sensor is laser interferometer displacement sensor. So sorry, it's a typing mistake there. Okay, so laser interferometer displacement sensor. So laser sensor uses very high precision numerically controlled machine tools. They uses helium neon lasers. So here laser sensor uses helium neon lasers, consist of discharge tube. So there is one discharge tube available. So this is a total discharge tube filled with a single isotope gases. So single isotope gases are filled. Helium at the potential partial pressure of 105 Pascal and neon Ne with a pressure of 13 Pascal. So the gas is filled in this neon, helium neon gas is filled in this, and the reflective mirrors are placed at the end. So these are two reflective mirrors and the light is passed. Okay, so the cylindrical aluminum cathode is available here, and the discharge channel is there, and there is another pin available as an anode pin. So we have anode and cathode pin, and the light is reflected towards this, and the discharge channel is available. Okay, so it is pumped electrically using a voltage on the order of kilovolts with a current of few milliamperes to excite both the helium and the neon atoms. The neutral helium atoms collides with the free electrons that are accelerated by the axial voltage and become excited by remain in the two rather long-lived metastable states. So this is based on the excitation of this particular gases, that is helium and neon gases, and because of the excitation they moved from one place to the another place and will measure the displacement based on this particular type. So this is again a light based sensor, the laser based sensor. So for this we are going to use helium neon laser gases. Okay, so this type of displacement sensor is a light based displacement sensor. Okay, next type we have is a ultrasonic displacement sensor. So here it is first we have seen resistor type, second is inductive, third is capacitive, fourth is light based, and fifth is ultrasonic. So this is a sound based sensor. So ultrasound is an acoustic wave with a frequency higher than the audible range of the human ear, that is of 20 kilohertz. So ultrasound frequency is too huge, that is not audible by normal human ear, but it is audible by for some of the animals such as dogs, bats or dolphins. So ultrasound is audible for dogs or bats or dolphins. Okay, so the human audible range is 20 Hz to 20 kilohertz, and ultrasound is above that 20 kilohertz. So when ultrasound is tested, the history of ultrasound, the ultrasound is tested in the year of 1883 by Sir Francis Galton, performed the first experiment with whistles generating ultrasound. So they started with a whistle, generating a whistles using ultrasound in 1883. So the first ultrasound tested in 1883 by Sir Francis Galton. So the inventor of ultrasound is Francis Galton. Okay, in the year 1883. The basic principle of use of ultrasound as the measurement tool in the time of flight technique. So time of flight technique means it uses the echo of ultrasound, like we transmit the ultrasound, whenever there is obstacle, the ultrasound reflected back and we catch that particular ultrasound again. So it is a time of flight. So it takes distance or time to travel in the air. So based on that particular time, we are going to calculate the distance. Okay, so this is the major way of calculating the distance using ultrasound displacement sensor. Okay, so ultrasound is again above the frequency of 20 kilohertz. Okay, so this is a basic block diagram of ultrasonic displacement sensors. So we require there are transmitter separate and the receiver is separate. So we require a transmitter. So here it is a transmitter available and the receiver is there. So transmitter transmit the senses. Okay, so transmitter transmits the wave. Whenever the obstacle it founds, it reflects back and the receiver catches that. So this is the distance, the time required to travel this particular wave from this transmitter to the receiver is calculated. So there is divided by 2 and we will get a distance. Okay, so what is there inside this block diagram? We have a noise generator. Okay, then we have FM modulator, that is voltage control oscillator. The carrier frequency is fed to the voltage control oscillator and the FM modulated signal is there, with the frequency above than 20 kilohertz, and there is an amplifier, and this amplifier amplifies this FM modulated signal and then transmit it. And the at the receiver side we have again amplification. It receives the signal, we need to amplify it again. Then we require FM demodulator with phase lock loop. PLL is available in this. Okay. Then we need to fade this particular thing to a low pass filter. Again the low pass filter, we need to remove the noise. Again the same noise is fed to the cross correlation or FFT analyzer. Also the low pass output is fed to the FFT analyzer. Okay, FFT analyzer analyzes that thing, and then we need to get to a computer. So to measure the distance we need to compute it. Okay, the range estimation will be calculated. So there are different ICs available for calculating this particular ultrasonic sensor. Okay, in that IC everything is fixed, that is FM modulator, amplification, and the transmitter and the receivers. Okay, so we'll see now in detail IC, that is this HCSR04. So ultrasonic sensor HCSR04 is the number of ultrasonic sensor. So what it does, it emits the ultrasound with the range of 40,000 Hertz, that is 40 kilohertz signal, travels through air. If there is an object or obstacle in its path, it will bounce back the model. So here it is a transmitter, so this is a T, okay, and this is R. Okay, so it is a crystal is available to generate this, and at the back side we have the ICs. So this transmits the signal. Whenever the obstacle, it founds the obstacle, it bounce back signal and the received by the receiver. Considering the time travel and the speed of the sound, you can calculate the distance. So based on the time travel and the speed, we can calculate the distance. So distance can be calculated as suppose here it is again a transmitter T, and here it is a receiver R. Okay, then velocity of light is 3.4, that is 340 meter per second. So we'll get 0.034 centimeter per microsecond. So time, we'll have an equation, time is equals to distance upon speed. So we'll get speed, distance is equals to speed on this side, we'll get a distance. So S is equals to T into 0.034 divided by 2. So why 2? Because it's the travel time. From this side it travels towards this, again it reflected towards this, so 2 times it travels. So distance is divided by 2. We need to make this divided by 2 for that purpose. Okay, so this is about HCSR04 calculations. Here it is ultrasonic sensor interfacing with Arduino. So how we are going to interface this ultrasonic sensor with Arduino? Again, this ultrasonic sensor is having 4 pins. One is a VCC, second is trigger, echo, and a ground. So trigger pin is a transmitter pin which transmit the information, and echo pin will receives that particular pin. So we need to configure these particular pins. One is a trigger pin, another is a echo pin. We have to give a plus minus 5 volt supply, plus 5 volt and a ground. Okay, the code looks like this. So here I have connected for Arduino, I have connected trigger pin to the pin number 9 and echo pin to the pin number 10. So trigger pin is output pin, so trigger is output and echo is a input. So we need to configure that particular thing here. So we have 2 variables, long duration and long in distance. Then pin mode, trigger pin as an output, pin mode, echo pin as an input. So we have configured that. We are going to measure the distance on a serial window. That's why I wrote this serial.begin 9600 void loop. Then first make trigger pin low to high transition. Okay, for 2 microsecond it is low. Then after that 10 microsecond it is high and again low. So one pulse I am going to send it on trigger pin. So this is a pulse sending code. So low and high and low. For high is for 10 microseconds. After that, whenever I transmit the pulse, so same pulse will be reflected back whenever there is obstacle. So once the echo pin gets input, so here I have checked duration is equals to pulse in echo pin comma high. So I have made duration pulse in echo pin comma high. Whenever it gets the echo pin as a high, so distance is equals to duration into 0.034 divided by 2. So again the distance is printed, serial.println distance and the distance in a centimeter. So here it is 0.034 is the code for a centimeter. So again it's printing the distance on the serial monitor. So this is the way you are going to interface ultrasonic sensor with Arduino, and this is embedded C code. Again we are going to see a Python code as well, how you are going to interface this ultrasonic sensor with a Raspberry Pi. So here it is the schematic diagram again. So again 4 pins, one is a VCC, second is a ground, and then trigger and echo. For this particular diagram I have used Fritzing software. So Fritzing is one of the software tool, and on this we can draw like this and we can simulate it as well there. So here it is a trigger pin, 10 microsecond trigger has been generated. Then whenever there is a echo, then we are going to measure this. So we'll see the Python code. Import RPI.GPIO as GPIO, import time, GPIO.set mode, GPIO.board mode. Here trigger pin I have connected to the pin number 15 in a board mode, and pin number 13 to the echo pin. So trigger is an output, so we have configured trigger here as an output and echo is an input, so we have configured it here as an input. So GPIO.set warning false, GPIO.setup trigger dot output, and GPIO.setup echo comma GPIO.in. So we have input. While true, again we wait for sensor to settle down for 2 seconds. So here it is sensor settling time. After that trigger is true. Okay, then 10 microsecond pulse we transmit and trigger makes false. While GPIO.echo is equals to 0, pulse start, time is equals to time.time is measured. Again whenever it gets a reflected signal echo as 1, then pulse end will be calculated. Pulse end is equals to time.time. Pulse duration will be calculated with the equation pulse duration is equals to pulse end minus pulse start. Then the distance will be pulse duration into 17150. So this is again calculation of 0.034. Okay, and then the distance is rounded, okay, with the 2 decimal places with this particular equation as a round function, and the distance is printed on the monitor. So distance is greater than 2 and less than 400, so distance is printed. So like this we can go to interface the ultrasonic sensor, and ultrasonic sensor is a sound based sensor. So in this lecture we have seen about resistive type of displacement sensor, inductive type displacement sensor, capacitive type displacement sensor, light based displacement sensor, also the sound based displacement sensors. Okay, and the way we are going to interface that particular sensors with different devices. Okay, so we'll stop it here for the today's session. Again we'll join on the Microsoft Teams. If you have any queries or any questions, we'll discuss there. Okay, we'll end up with the lecture. Thank you. You can write the comments in this particular comment box. Thank you.